Witch Hunts by Adat Agba and Charlene Giroge. In this presentation, we will be discussing about what were the real motives behind the witch hunts. The definition of a witch by Chief Justice Coke of England. A witch was a person who hath conference with the devil to consult with him or to do some act. In the picture above, you can see men and women meeting, which is supposed to be the devil. Background information. Between the 15th and 18th century in Europe, as many people know, the witch hunts involved women, sometimes men, but mainly women. Women would be dragged from their houses, beaten, have things thrown at them, killed, or anything possible to humiliate and downgrade them. Women such as the old, sick, widowed, and midwives were targeted the most out of all women. Midwives especially because they took care of children, and back then many things were happening to children. They would get sick, or they would be lost, or some would say they had pain inflicted on them and blame it on witches. Suspicious people were also targeted during this time. Basically anything out of the normal would be targeted as witchcraft. During this time, the church was a battle between Protestants and Roman Catholics, so many people were drawn away from the church, and the church didn't like this very much, so they decided that they wanted to be more involved. So by doing this, they would be the ones doing the witch trials or the witch hunts and torturing anything that was pursued as a witch. And they needed no evidence to accuse someone, and the Protestant Christianity saw witchcraft as being associated to wild satanic ritual parties. In the picture above, you can see how a witch trial is going on, and the woman is supposedly committing witchcraft in the building that they are in. Torturing. Women would be whipped with anything, basically. They could have nails on it, or just like a plain whip. They would be burned with hot irons, scalding water, hot oil, or hot fat. They would be beaten, pinched with a pincer all over their body, crushed or stretched with their hands behind their backs, or paired, which was forced feeding. Recurring involvement. This was seen as a war against women. During this time, women were not very appreciated. They were kind of inferior to everyone else, so no one really appreciated them. It was done mostly by men in positions of central power. Mainly the church people who were like really high up in church or who were really high up in government performed these kind of witch hunts and the witch trials and everything. And women were accusing female neighbors because no one wanted to be blamed. So they would go and state someone else was doing it before they could get blamed. The church input. Protestant leaders were vocal in the persecutions. Having the church be a vocal part in people's lives, even with the Reformation occurring, it persuaded people to act on these devilish people. As Martin Luther said, let us note that if we want to be taken for Christians, witchcrafts, enchantments, and such other similar things must be no more tolerated among us than robberies and murders. Church leaders saw the witchcraft occurring in society to bring people back to the church. Church theory. Protestant Reformation ensued. Four main religions that were involved. Thought of needing no compassion. The church was not strong, trying to push people back to religious ideas, exterminating any rival religion. Having the devil and the actions of the witches, they were trying to bring people back closer to the church. Ideology. The major religions that inhabited Europe were involved in witch hunts with motives of bringing back people. while having the same intentions because of their loss of control and power due to the Reformation. The witch hunts were designed to bring people back, yet terminate any religion or idea that differed with the church. For the church, the main people that were broadcast as a problem were the midwives that were located in these areas. Reformation caused downfall in church authority. Wanted to terminate the authority of midwives, despised the ideas of the Enlightenment, and hate for the anti-religious rationalism. In this video, you will see not only what we talked about, but even more on how the witch hunts or witch trials were during this time period.
Faced the lethal threat of being accused of witchcraft. The concept of witchcraft originated from the religious belief in magic and superstition. Factors that contributed to the rise of witchcraft persecution included the influence of perceived magic within clerical circles and the popularity of communication with the dead among learned men. Political and social unrest only heightened fear of witches, as evident by the surge in witchcraft persecution during the Western Schism of the popes.
80% of those accused of witchcraft were women, mainly poor widows, spinsters, and the elderly. In southwestern Germany, 82% of those accused were women, where in Switzerland and in parts of France, 78% of those accused were women. Torture was a standard procedure of interrogations, and only one-half were spared from execution. The imbalanced persecution of women versus men was caused by the belief that women were inferior, and they were described as having an inability to control their passions and as sexual slaves to the devil. This opinion was made popular due to handbooks on witch hunting. Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, was published by the Catholic Inquisition during the 15th century and states, "It should be noted that there are a defect in the formation of the first woman, since she was born from a bent rib, which is bent as if it were contrary direction to men. And since through this defect she is an imperfect animal, she always deceives." In France alone, 345 booklets on witchcraft were published between 1550 and 1650, during a time in which witch trials peaked.
In the 16th century, witchcraft was officially persecuted by state and religious authorities. Economic troubles, plague, warfare, and religious strife increased the number of witchcraft accusations as people sought an explanation and scapegoat for the uncertainty and conflict. Germany, the main battleground of the brutal 30 Years' War, saw the greatest number of women persecuted as witches. Areas in which the wars of religious reformations occurred saw a large number of executions as well. Of the 100,000 people accused of witchcraft during the 16th and 17th century, it is estimated that 80% were women and one-third were killed.
In Germany, an accused witch stated, "Innocent have I come into prison, innocent have I been tortured, innocent I must die." In Trier, Germany, a city official reflects upon the ways in which the witch hunt impacted the community. He says, "The whole country rose to exterminate the witches. It was promoted by many in office, who hoped wealth from the persecution. And so, from court to court throughout the towns and villages, scurried special accusers and inquisitors dragging to trial and torture human beings."
Religion encouraged the belief in witchcraft. Martin Luther, leader of the Protestant Reformation, stated, "Sorcerers or witches are the devil's whores who raise storms, ride on goats or broomsticks. The devil is unable to do these things by himself without human help." Even during the Scientific Revolution, the belief in magic was sustained, and the persecution of women as witches prevailed. While artists, political thinkers, and scientists became more secular, people remained very religious.
It wasn't until the attitudes of the elites changed that witchcraft subsided. The elite physicians, lawyers, and clergy members began to distance themselves from the popular, common man's belief of witches. The lay people began to emulate this attitude. In 1640, France arrested witch hunters and released suspected witches. In 1682, a royal decree stated that witchcraft was officially fraud and imposture.
And here's our works cited.